Criticism is not going to get you to win friends and influence people. I think doing a good job with that for 1 hour is like working 10 hours. It takes a
And
lot of energy.
sincerity plays a big role in the ability to influence people.
I believe that criticizing is probably the number one cause of family issues.
Get Jill, the wisdom for your will.
Reb Shulam, how are you? Good to see
Ah,
you.
it's good to see you, Chaim, as always. What's doing? How is everything?
Yeah, it's amazing. Baruch Hashem. I have a special announcement today
Oh,
that we
yes.
decided that we're going to try to do a book review. Okay, I can't
Right.
promise that every episode is going to be a book review, but I tell you one thing. I hate reading. I don't like reading. So whenever I want to read a book, I usually buy the audiobook version and I listen to the book. But I know that you love, I knew that you love reading. We had a conversation about that. You love reading. And since I think a lot of our listening audience are very similar to me, that they don't like so much to read, they don't have the Sitzfleisch. So we decided that we're gonna take from time to time some books, interesting books that we think the audience can benefit from it, and have a conversation about the book, like some takeouts, some interesting points from the book. And this way, by us having a conversation and a little conversation, you can probably intake a lot of the information from some good books that I think can help a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I think it's worth mentioning that, like you said, I do read a lot. And as a rule, everything that I read about is without question talked about in Torah. It's talked about in our Messiah. So what is the Mila? What do you gain from discussing these books? The Mila is that this information is put in a way that it makes it accessible, and it makes and it's brought in a language that sometimes makes these concepts easier to understand and easier to figure out how we can apply it to our lives. So there is a tremendous amount to be gained, even though when you hear some of these concepts, you think, well, I heard about that. The rabbi spoke about it last week already. Yeah, but the difference is that when we discuss it and what these books have to offer is oftentimes kind of bridging the gap from what we know theoretically to actually being able to make it practical.
Yeah, but I think also usually when the rabbi talks, he talks about spirituality, and usually most of what the rabbi says you can apply to your life as well. And since this program is called Git Gel, I don't think most of the rabbis will take it into context how you can apply it in business. Some do,
Right.
but I think since this program is very focused on financial success, on business success, and we talk about these concepts specifically geared towards financial success. I think that's a big difference. And by the way,
Okay.
you're a rabbi, Reb Shulem, so if you want to really get the audience attention, make sure that when you do your speeches, you should talk about money. I'm sure you do, but I'm just talking about it.
Right. Okay. That's a valid
And
point.
I'm very excited. I have to tell you, I'm very excited about the first book that we chose. And the reason I'm excited is because this is the first book that I read in my life, besides the certain books that I had to read for my life insurance business, like for the
Mhm.
licensing and for all that stuff. So the first book that I read that I thought maybe it's gonna help me make more sales, it's gonna help me deal with people. I had no experience dealing with people. I dealt with Bukharam in yeshiva before, but that's
Right.
basically with whom I dealt. I never had to sell. I never tried to sell. And all of a sudden I see myself as an insurance salesperson. They say that if you can sell insurance, you can sell anything. And that was the first book that I read, and the name of the book is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's an
Mhm.
amazing book. I can tell you it helped me so much with sales, with business, and in person with my wife, my children, with dealing with others.
Right. I think you should mention as well when it was written. It was not like a more recent book that's now on the New York Times bestseller list.
I think, how long ago was it written?
It was written in the 30s.
in the 30s, and it's still in the on the
And that's just,
I
and
don't
it's
know New
still,
York
and it's
Times, but
still
in
one of the
Amazon
best.
for sure, it's the one of
It's
the
still one of the
top
best-selling
selling.
books. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's fascinating that, something's been around that long and is still successful. Says something about the quality and of the messaging and about what the book has to say.
Absolutely, I tell you even more that some of the mentors that I had in my business were Talmidim, disciples of Dale Carnegie.
Hmm.
So, but I only found that out later. I didn't have all these mentors back then when I read the book. But
Right.
I probably read it a few times. It's unbelievable. And I will ask you, Shulam, let me give you give us the core message of the book.
The core message, I think, really boils down to taking a sincere interest into whoever it is that you are dealing with, whoever you're having a correspondence with or you're developing a relationship with. The book is all about genuinely appreciating and respecting the person you're dealing with, and you're when dealing with with somebody, no matter what the context, look for ways that you can appreciate their value and think about how you can express that to them. That's really the underlying side of the entire book.
So if I understand you correctly, there are two steps here. Step number one is appreciate the other person that you're dealing with. Let's say you want to make a
Right.
sale. You're the salesperson, appreciate the customer. Like
Correct.
really, really appreciate. And the other thing, which I think is even more important than that, is how to express it. Because I think a
Correct.
lot of people don't know how to express it, and nobody knows what's in the other person's brain. You dealing with somebody, you really appreciate the other person, you really want the benefit of the other person. But if you don't express it, then what good is it? So how do you express it? And I think the book focuses a lot on how to express it as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I'll just point out that so many other books since this first came out have been written that, if you want to further understand the Carnegie, Euclides and ideas, there's other books that can also give you more detail. you know, but there's no question he like you said, there's two areas here. There's having a genuine appreciation for the value of people you're dealing with, and the number two is being able to express that and communicate that. Yes.
I want to tell you a quick story. I'm just reminded of a quick story that I think you would like, Abshula. There was a couple, they were married for 20 years, and the wife calls the roof that she decided she wants a divorce.
Hmm.
So the roof asks, what's going on? No, she wants a divorce. Okay, come over with your husband. Let's see what we can do. She comes over, and then the roof asks again, tell me, what's going on? And she insists she wants a divorce. So the rabbi turns to the husband. What's going on? He says, I have no idea. Well, she got up in the morning. She wants a divorce. I have no idea. We had shalom bayis all the time. We never fight it. I don't know what's going on. So the roof
Uh-huh.
started pressing her. You have to tell me what's going on. She said, I tell you what. We married for 20 years. He never tells me that he loves me.
Uh-huh.
So the roof turns to him and asks, "Is it true that you don't love her?" He says, "Of course I love her. I don't know I don't know what she's talking about." So the roof asks her, he says he loves you. You say he doesn't love you. What's going on? So she says, he never expressed it to me. He never told it to me. Then the roof asks
Right.
him, "Why don't you tell it to her?" He says, "I don't know. Let me explain you something, Roof. 20 years ago, we got married. I remember the first night we came home after the wedding. I told her I love you. I never took it
Right.
back. Why do I have to keep telling it to her? I told her 20 years ago. She should know it
Right.
and finish."
Right.
So, the moral of the story, if you don't know how to express something, you can think that, I told her 20 years ago, that's it. But if you're not gonna express your feeling of appreciation, and of course, and by the way, I think that's the biggest difference between influence, the way that Carnegie suggests, and manipulation.
Absolutely. And I think you're coming on to a very important point. And yes, you know, people aren't as stupid as we may think they are. We like to think that we might be very charming and charismatic, and we're gonna, for the sake of getting the deal, we're just gonna convince people how interested we are. But if you're not sincere, then correct. Sincerity plays a big role in the ability to influence people and the ability to really connect with them in the way that you're aiming for. But, to your point regarding that story, all these things don't necessarily come naturally to us. And I think that's another big aside that although Carnegie may not say it explicitly, I think it's something that we should bring up that, like in the story, of course he loved his wife. It was understood. There was never a doubt in his mind. But it's a skill to learn how to express yourself. And it doesn't always come naturally to us. And we see this in parenting, we see this in work, we see this between our spouses in all different areas. There's a certain assumptions we make that people just get it or get us, and they don't necessarily. And number two, it's skills. There's also skills not only how to express yourself, but how to be able to truly value people. You might think, of course, I value that person. He's great. Yeah, I love him to pieces, whatever the situation may be. But just because you may think highly of somebody doesn't mean you necessarily value them or you appreciate them in order to be able to convey that. So all these things we tend to take for granted that we know how to do this, but I don't think it's always true. And I think, there's a lot of skills involved in learning how to just simply listening. There are skills needed to actually listen to somebody. If you really want to value them, you have to be able to listen to them and hear what they have to say. And in order to be able to truly appreciate them, in order to be able to express to them your value for them or how they are valuable. So my point being that there's a lot of skills involved. And on the flip side of that, we may think that just because we're charismatic and we think that we're so easy to get along with and so friendly that people automatically just assume I really value them, even though I'm being manipulative. That's also something to be aware of, that people pick up on our our sincerity or lack thereof. People pick up on that. And so, yes, there's a big difference between being manipulative as opposed to being influencing in a positive way. And I think all these things require thought and does require some work and skills and definitely intentionality. No matter what, the bottom line is you have to be intentional about what you're doing.
Right. I think that's important, the intentional part. And it's also, I think, tell me what you think, Reb Shlomo. I think that a lot of people, they're so humble, and it's a false humbleness. They don't get it, how much the other party appreciates a good word from you. And I give you an example. Think about father-child. You know how many
Yes.
children I just had, I'm reminded, I just had it with my son on Purim. My son was drunk,
Mhm.
and he started telling me things that he never told me. How
Mhm.
much he loves me and how much he appreciates me and how what fantastic job my wife and myself, did raising him. He told me stuff that he never told me.
Mhm.
And then the day after Purim, he calls me up. He says, Tati, I want you to know everything I told you yesterday when I was drunk is 100% true. But I only was able to tell it to you when I was drunk.
Right.
So, so we don't have so many times we don't have that. Yes, you are worthwhile and to give a good word to your parents, and they're looking forward for it. You can give them so much by giving them a good word. So many times we don't do it for others because we think they're up here and I'm here. Who am I to tell them such a good, how much I appreciate them? But it's not
Right.
true. Everybody's eager to get a good word, no matter from whom. And you may look at you like a nobody, but in the other person's eye, he is like he's gonna appreciate whoever. I think that's the big cloud. Whenever you have something good to say, never think that you're a nobody. Just say it. Make sure that
And,
you express your appreciation to the other person.
right. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we all have the same needs and desires. And it's immense desire and need to be recognized for who we are and what we do as human beings want to hear from other people, you know, positive thoughts and a recognition of value. That's so important, and it plays a big role in developing relationships with other people. Um, but again, sincerity is one of the key foundations to that as well.
Yeah. Let me take a detour for a second to talk about Carnegie's approach to not about expressing appreciation, but what not to say. I think
Okay.
I think a lot of people, yeah, when that you talk about having appreciation to the other person, thinking about what you admire about the other person, expressing it, and they thinking to themselves, okay, I'm going to start doing it. But it's even more important what you don't say than what you
Mhm.
do say. And by the way, everything we're talking about is about husband and wife, children and parents, and of course clients and a company representative.
Right.
So many times we want to say things that it's better not to say. So talk about that for a minute.
You want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. There's a fascinating sitter from the sitter Agra. Years ago, there was a sitter Agra that was printed in paperback, and that particular printing had a section called Shiltus in it. Shiltus that, it's brought down that Reb Chaim Volozhin had asked the Vilna Gaon hundreds of questions, and he wrote down short answers to these questions. And one of them is that he quotes the Vilna Gaon as saying that if you cannot control yourself from raising your voice and you give teichacha, you're patur from the mitzvah of teichacha, which I always thought was so incredible because it's the of course we have mitzvahs, we have to play a role in standing up when we believe somebody might be needing some support or chizik. But if you can't do it in a way that the person is going to be able to accept it or respond to it, then you're not doing them any good. If anything, you may even be damaging. And that you cite is so crucial in so many different aspects. Even if you're not talking within the realm of teichacha, but it is so important
By
that
the
it's
way,
good.
explain the word techucha to simple people
Oh,
like me. What does it mean?
giving rebuking giving rebuke or constructive criticism if somebody needs a bit of chizik or needs a bit of getting back on track. Okay, so what that statement from the Vilna Gaon highlighted to me is, you know, if you really care about somebody, it's not enough to just share with them, what they're doing wrong or conveying your concerns. It's just as relevant and important to make sure it's done in a way that they're going to actually accept it and be able to respond to it. And that requires a recognition that, we're human beings. And as human beings, we're sensitive. We do get we get put on the defensive if we feel like we're being attacked. We we have a hard time, getting beyond the fact that I see things purely from my own perspective. And you need as a person who wants to give me some guidance, you need to penetrate that shell that I have around myself. And it's not going to be accomplished if you're coming head on and banging at it. It has to be done in a much more subtle way. So again, intentionality is crucial here. But also, if you sincerely care about the person, you're going to think about how can I approach this person and do it in a way that they're going to actually appreciate what I have to say and listen to what I have to say. So that's one of Carnegie's rules is, part of a relationship is, you know, taking it upon yourself, the recognition that I need to make sure that I'm handling this relationship, even in sensitive issues, in a way that is truly within the realm of concern and empathy for the person I'm dealing with. Now, of course, not everything is always positive and happy clappy. We can't pretend. Sometimes people do need a good laying into, and it happens. I know I need it myself. Of course I do. But there's not going to be any good accomplished if you don't think about what is the best way to approach the situation and do it in a sensitive way that the person I'm speaking to will indeed be able to receive the message I'm sharing.
Yeah, this is a very complicated, I think a very complicated subject. And in short, what you're saying is don't criticize or condemn or complain so, so easily. And I tell you, a few days ago, I met somebody that told me that he calls one of his parents, he calls daily, and the other parent, he only calls like once a week, once in 2 weeks. I asked him why. He says, because every time I call this parent that he calls, less often, they complain, always
Mhm.
negative, always criticizing. And it's so important, and it's very, very challenging, especially when we're talking with close people to us, like children, spouse. And I believe that the the criticizing is probably the number one cause of family issues,
Mhm.
of bad feelings between family members and spouses. Is probably the number one. Commenting and criticizing, always having something negative to say. And
Mhm.
of course, I have to say it, That's what the person thinks. He has to say it, especially if I have to be mechanech the other person. I have to say it. If you have to say it, it should be really, really thought over. How am I going to say it? When am I going to say it? Is it the proper thing to say it? Maybe I can put it away for a better time. And I think you also need to have the proper balance. Like how many compliments did I give this person in the past? I don't know how much time that they are already they're ready to take some criticism as well.
Right.
And it's all because, I think the key word that you mentioned is constructive. If you want to be constructive, if you would just want to give out your emotions, then, you don't care for the damage. That's not the point
Right.
of the book. But the point of the book is how to win friends and influence people. And I can tell you probably, most probably 99.9% of the time, I would probably say more than 99.9%, is criticism is not going to get you to win friends and influence people.
Right. And I would say that again, the main focal point, if you're ever questioning, am I doing this for my own selfish reasons or am I really concerned about the other person? It boils down to that you decide, am I truly valuing this person and as whatever interaction I'm going to have with them, is it going to be a means of expressing that value? That's really what the book is about. So if you're going to criticize somebody, make sure you remember that the criticism has to be as a means to enhance their value because you do appreciate them. If you have that in mind, that will help you then to think about the best way to go ahead and offer
Yeah,
that
but you have
criticism,
to you
whatever.
have to be honest with yourself. You
A
really
hundred
have to be
percent,
honest with yourself.
100%.
And by the
A
way,
hundred.
I give you a good measurement. How do you know that it's gonna help the other person?
Yeah,
Think about the past few years when you criticize. Did it help them or not? Did
right.
it did it attract them to you or did it distance them from you? If you think
For
about
sure.
your son, your daughter, you see that your child avoids you. He or she doesn't like to be in your surroundings so much. And
Right,
whenever you open your mouth and you criticize, they want to leave. Think about, is this good? Is this really what you want?
right,
Most
right,
probably because you can't control yourself.
right.
You really
A
want
hundred
that
percent.
they're good. Make sure that you have proof that what you're doing works.
Right. Yeah, and be prepared to acknowledge that it's a skill that has to be learned and doesn't necessarily come naturally, and that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that
Right.
and to be prepared to work on it.
And the main thing is to be conscious, don't just do
And
something because you got the idea. So let's
yeah,
move to the next thing. How to make the importance of making others feel important. And I'm thinking of many experiences that I had in the insurance business when I did sales. Naturally, if I'm the expert and I'm coming to somebody to sell something, I want to show off as being the expert,
right,
thinking that this is what's going to make the sale. And the interesting thing is, based on how Carnegie puts it, and I think he's 100% right. If you come to the same sales meeting and instead of showing off as the expert, you show off when the client knows something that other people usually don't know, like he knows how a life insurance policy works, or he did some insurance programs before, and instead of me explaining him certain things that I know that he should do, I should recognize him as important. Wow, you did such a good thing. You made a good decision with doing this or with doing that, and you know more than most people know. I think this is much more important for the sale than showing off my expertise.
Well, again, because you're focusing on their value, and and that like that's a skill. But and I fully agree. And these are skills that if we're intentional and conscious about, we can develop them, and they're not. It's not rocket science to learn how to express your how much you appreciate somebody. But I think underlying that is again the same you cite is really making sure that you sincerely appreciate the person and having and being prepared to listen to what they have to say and being able to if you're talking about how do you make them feel important, people want to be listened to. They don't want to be lectured to. They don't want to be just talked to. They want to truly feel like you get them, like you're listening to them.
And they want to feel
and
special, special
and
and
they, of
important.
course, but I think just it's so we don't give enough time to just listening to one another, and letting
Listening for the sake of listening.
right,
Most
and
people
it's
who
a
listen is for the
skill.
sake to have what to answer.
Correct. When I was a Rebbe in the Sifta, I actually did a course on listening skills, and I was amazed. There's a whole science behind how to appropriately listen to people so that you can actually engage them. And in my case, it was important as a Rebbe, how many Talmidim feel unlistened to and get frustrated and get turned off, and I just felt like this is a skill that I really have to learn, and it made such a huge impact in every aspect of my life, whether it was with Talmidim, whether it was my wife, with my children, in work, whatever it was. Once you learn some real basics, and you can learn these skills. There's books about it. There's videos about it. I mean, again,
Yeah,
these
we're
you
talking
say
about
this,
it now.
yeah, but there's a few very basic steps that if you begin to use them, you'll find that you become a much better listener,
A-
and that is a game changer.
Absolutely. Listen, this is how you attracted me, but you always listen to me. You never stop talking. You always listen to
Yeah, you're a really hard person to listen to. You should just know you have no idea how much work is involved in listening to you, Chaim.
me. Yeah, you need a lot of years of experience. Reb
Indeed.
Shulam, Reb Shulam,
Yes,
did you like when I said Reb Shulam, or you would rather me say Shulam, or you would rather me just start saying what I wanted to say?
you just call me whatever you want. I don't care
No, no,
however
no.
you
I'm not
refer to me
talking
is
about
fine.
whatever I want. I'm asking what makes you feel better when I say what I want to say, or I first say
Oh,
Shulam listen, or I say Rep Shulam listen. What makes you feel better?
Shalom is good. I like Shalom.
You like Shulam. So when I say
Yeah,
before I say something, I say Shulam, you like it more, right?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. And the same also when if you say Chaim before you say something,
Okay.
which brings me to the next point in the book that I think it's worthwhile discussing,
Okay.
is about using a person's name. I think it's
Right.
the sweetest word in the world that a person likes is their name.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yes. It's
Can
it's
you
the
tell me
difference.
something from your experience on that?
I'll tell you, when I was a Rebbe for many years and I was a Rav, um, when I first took the job as Rebbe, you just put in a classroom, you could have anywhere from 10 to 25 Talmidim. And, you know, they're all fresh faces. There's a lot going on. And yet you want to connect with them as quickly as possible. So I read in a teacher training book, which I think was such a precious piece of advice. The idea was draw a map before you start the class, for the first part of the first day of the year. Draw a map of the desks, and as you go around the room, make sure you put every student's name in each individual desk, and keep that on your stender until you don't need anymore. That way, you always have easy reference so that when you have a Talmud in the classroom, you can look at what desk they're at and remember their name and call them by their name. And again, it made such a huge difference. And when I took on the shul, I used to keep a notebook, and I would make sure that I kept notes of when people would talk to me about their children or their latest grandchild, I would make a note of it, because what a smile on somebody's face they would get when you say, "Oh, how's your grandchild, Shimmy doing, or Bracha doing?" Their face would light up, like, you actually remember. But the flip side of that is when you can't remember, how despondent they look. Like, you can't, it's between night and day. Why is it so important? I think because when we call each other by our names, it means that there's a connection there that already exists, and it creates whatever it does something in our brains, whatever chemicals it starts. But it's a reality, and
Unbelievable.
and you
Yeah.
know, and if we're sensitive to that, it's such an easy trick that has such enormous dividends.
100%. I a few weeks ago on Shabbos, I walked on the street with my son, and I talked to my son about this concept about using the other person's name. I told him,
Right.
let's do an experiment. We're walking to shul now. People come the opposite way, and we always say Git Shabbos to the other person, whoever walks by. We say Git Shabbos. But now, whoever I know the name, I'm gonna make sure to say Git Shabbos Yitzchak, Git Shabbos Yankov, and let's
Hmm.
see if there is a difference.
Right.
And and there was such a huge difference. You can imagine when I say
Sure.
Good Shabbos Yitzchak, he lights up, and it's on. And
Yeah.
and and I do it with my children every Shabbos. We bench them. I bench them before Kiddush, and I
Right.
say Good Shabbos, Srili Good Shabbos, with the name, and it's unbelievable. So you wanna
Right.
your wife, with your children, with your husband, and with others, just say the name. And now
Right.
for effect with Sholem and Chaim as well. We
I
we
got it.
admit it.
Absolutely. It's huge. It's huge. Um, and these aren't just tricks. Carnegie's book is not just a book of tricks. It's bringing to our attention, you know, tools that should be used as a reflection of our true appreciation for people.
Right. Um, let's talk the other thing. I remember when I was in the insurance business, there was an agent, very, very, very successful agent.
Hmm.
And I had a conversation with him. He should tell me more how he does his business. And he showed me every time before he meets somebody, how much homework he does to understand the person. Like which Kehillah is he, if it's which Hasidas, which Kehillah, which circles, what's his interest, where does he belong, who
Right.
are his friends, etc., etc. And I thought it was fascinating. I don't think I did such a good job as him. And I heard it from others also in the business where let's say two people, strange people meet. One is a salesperson, and one is the other person expecting somebody's going to try to sell him something. So when he comes in, he loves to wait in the waiting area for a while first to be able to look at the walls to see what's their interest, what clubs do they belong
Right.
to, what sports do they play. That's what he says.
Right.
In our circle, we can say which rabbi does he like, which where does he hang around? Who are his friends? And then, who was his grandfather? Yeah, I was once in a place and I saw one of the big Doylem's picture. I took a picture and I sent it to the grandson of this Goodwill. He was so happy. So the point is that you talk about the other person's interests and you open them up this way. You try to get into a place they should talk about something they love to talk. So let's say I'm with my child. I want to talk about how he should behave better, but
Right.
I'm going to lose him if this is how I'm going to start the conversation. Imagine me starting to talk about the best way to, if this is the child's interest, the best way to win in a game that he's playing.
Right.
And you engage him this way. He opens up and he knows that you're on the same page with him. And then you can also throw in, I think in such a situation would be better to do blah, blah, blah. But I think it's unbelievable if you can start directing the focus on that. And he talks about that a lot.
Yeah, and 100, yeah, it's all goes back to the same you cite, and you know, you've got to wonder somebody who's a successful businessman who probably has several pitches thrown at him on a daily basis, right? And all these people are trained in sales, and they all know how to do, and they all know how to do research. They all look them up. They all talk about the same, oh, I know what country club you go to, and I know, and they talk about the same interests, right? You tell me, Chaim, who's going to be the one that successfully gets the deal? Even they all did the same research. They all know the background. They all know the family. They all know who's the one who's going to be the most attractive to this fellow.
I think the person who can align with him in some other areas of his life. He feels like he's one with him. Like he breaks the barrier of trust very quickly.
Yeah, but they're all these people are experienced in sales. They all learned the same technique, so they all come aligned. They're all prepared to show how aligned they are with this guy. Okay, but only one of them is going to get the deal.
Okay.
Who's going to get that
Maybe
deal?
the
I'm
one who
asking.
can express it the best. I'm not sure. You tell me.
I think it's the one who is the most sincerely interested in this person,
He's not faking it.
and it's not and it's not something that you it's not a box you can tick. It's not about showing more detailed knowledge of this fellow. We as human beings sitting in that chair hearing all these pitches, we automatically are inclined to connect to the person who really is the most sincere. And we pick up on that naturally. So you can do all the preparation and you can do all the sales coaching and all the sales techniques and everything. But if you cannot say that you are sincerely interested in this person and you sincerely value this person, then no matter how much research and how much knowledge you have about him, it's not going to make you're not going to necessarily make that deal. You know, we have a natural um, recognition and we have a natural radar for when somebody really is sincere and they really do value us.
To be sincere. Don't just talk about the interest of the other person. Really be interested.
And that's hard because when you're focused on earning a living and you got to feed your family, all you really care, you don't really care about this guy. He's just another means for you to make another commission. I mean, and that's fair. That's your job. Let's not fool ourselves, right? But but if you really want to be successful, it's more than just
Absolutely.
ticking the boxes.
I remember I was always trying to, not always, sorry, I said always, not always. I knew my job is before I walk into the door of this client, I should leave all my trouble outside. I don't need a check. I don't need anything. And for the next hour or so, just zoom into that person, double click on him. Make sure you're
Right.
interested to help him, interested in what he's interested. It's I think doing a good job with that for 1 hour is like working 10 hours. It takes a
And
lot of energy, but it's
and I and I
worthwhile.
and I want to just say, as a finishing thought, the question then is we're talking all these lofty ideals, Chaim, you and I, we're talking about how important it is to be concerned about people and want to and value them, but what real skill can one use to make that happen? And I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier, and that is learn listening skills. Learn how to be able to focus on what somebody's saying to you when they're talking and not be distracted by other things, not with your phone, not with whatever else it is. And, make it a goal when you're talking to people that you're listening so intently. And again, this is listening skills 101. Be able to repeat to them or paraphrase what they said to you. If you listened that intently to someone that you're able to say back to them, oh, so what I think you're saying or what I hear you saying is 1, 2, 3, and just simply be able to summarize or paraphrase it, you've already you've already changed the entire landscape of that relationship.
Right.
Because even if you really don't care, you don't give a hoot about, you don't care about this person, but the fact that you made the effort to be able to listen so intently and to be able to share with them what you hear from them and how you understand it, whether you sincerely that's going to force you to be sincerely interested. because you won't be able to repeat it or paraphrase without really
Right.
making the effort to hear what they have to say. And this is listening skills 101.
I think that's
And
called mirroring, right?
what what's it called?
Mirroring, mirror, like a mirror.
Mirroring. Yeah. I mean, they have different names for it. Yeah. But even for somebody who may not come so easily to really, you're in a hurry, you want to make some money, you don't have time. So how are you gonna be able to show any sincere interest? Basic listening skills will force you to be interested. And I think that's just something to share with everybody is, you know, and it's more difficult than it sounds, quite honestly, but it's an easy step, easy in the sense that it's a skill that you can adopt right away, and will be a game changer.
Wow. I have to tell you, Shalom, I really, really love this conversation. And I'm thinking if somebody wants to suggest a book that we should review, they should send me an email, chaim@chaimekstein.com, CHAIMEKS, sorry, CHAIM@CHAIMEKSTEIN.com, or put a
Right.
comment on YouTube or wherever you hear it, or watch it. But I really loved it. I really hope we can do more. We can do that more often.
Absolutely.
And
I
happens to be this book. I was more Heimish in it because I read it a few times and I lived it, quite
uh,
a lot of time. But I'm sure we're gonna get to books where I'm gonna just have to be quiet and do a good job listening.
there's a lot of really good books out there
Yeah,
that have valuable things to say.
amazing. Okay. Yeah, we'll leave it with this and have an
Okay.
amazing day. And let's talk next week.
Looking forward. Looking
Be'ezras
forward.
Hashem.
As always.
Get Jill the wisdom for your will. Get Jill the wisdom for your will.